The acronym JSON, or JSON, stands for JavaScript Object Notation. JSON is a data interchange format based on how JavaScript stores objects, but it's not limited to JavaScript. It's used in many languages and systems. The format uses plain text, so it's not difficult to understand, if we take it one step at a time. Every JSON file contains a single object, which begins with a left brace and ends with a right brace. An empty object isn't much use, so we'll add some content. The content is known as the object's properties. Each property is made of two components. First, a name for the property. For example, color. In JSON, a property name is always a string of text characters wrapped in double quotation marks. The second component is the value of the property. Before the value, after the name is a colon to separate the two. Note that the colon does not go inside the quotation marks. The value can be a variety of data types or structures. We'll start simple. The most common value is a string of text characters. For example, blue. When a value is a text string, it is wrapped in double quotation marks. This completes an object with a single property named color, assigned the value blue. The name is also known as a key, and this combination that makes a property is often called a key-value pair. Of course, objects can have more than one property, and usually do. For additional properties, a comma signifies another property follows. Note again, the comma is outside the quotation marks. This isn't English class. But that doesn't mean a comma or other punctuation isn't allowed in text values. Text values may contain any characters, but a few need special attention. More about that at the end. Values can also be a number. In that case, the value is not wrapped in quotation marks. Numbers may be integers or real numbers expressed as decimal fraction or exponent. Values can also be binary, true or false, or neither, or anything else, null. These three value types are expressed using the literal characters not wrapped in quotation marks. Last are compound values, meaning values that are objects themselves, or like objects, because they contain multiple values. An array, for example, which is an ordered collection of values of a similar type. An array begins with a left bracket and ends with a right bracket. This is an important distinction. Objects use braces. Arrays use brackets. Arrays are values only, each separated by a comma. They do not have names, like object properties. But like objects, array values can be any data type also used in objects. The other compound value is an object, which makes another object within the object. The same rules apply. The property requires a name, and then the value begins with a left brace and ends with a right brace. Within the braces are the properties of the object. The object can contain any of the other data types, even another object. Or an array. The last property does not end with a comma because nothing follows it. And finally, the object concludes with a right brace. Before I continue, one thing to mention. I'm writing out this JSON manually only to demonstrate its structure. This isn't something we normally do. There are functions to write and read JSON. For example, JavaScript has stringify and parse functions. In other languages, the precise function names vary. Next are some special considerations to keep in mind. I'll show this in JavaScript code, but the same applies to JSON. Here's a simple object assigned to a variable. It's important to know that names are case sensitive. So this is legal because the letter case differs, if only slightly. But I strongly discourage doing this. A system that consumes JSON could ignore letter case and see two properties as the same name. And even for humans, it can be confusing. Don't do it. Also, property names shouldn't have punctuation or spaces. They can, and there are reasons for doing it, but in most cases, it's not a good idea. Here is why. The typical way to access properties of an object is known as dot notation, meaning a property is accessed by the object name, a dot, and the property name. This is not limited to JavaScript. Other languages work this way as well. If we write var b equals a dot color, then b equals blue. But suppose instead of color, the property name is favorite color with a space. This cannot be accessed with dot notation. Var b equals a dot favorite space color. That's a syntax error. When using dot notation, property names follow the same rules as variable names. No spaces allowed. And other rules, which I won't cover here because any programmer should already know. However, if such a property name is required, there is a way to access it. Use bracket notation instead. Var b equals a brackets, quote, favorite space color. This works in JavaScript anyway. But the idea of JSON is data interchange, and you have no idea if the consumer of the JSON has this capability. So I discourage naming properties this way when JSON is involved. There are times to prefer bracket notation, but that's another subject. Like variable names, also consider using camel case when property names are multiple words normally separated by a space. For example, favorite color using capital C. Var b equals a dot favorite capital C color. This form of property name and access is typical in many languages. Next is special considerations for text values. I'll go back to the JSON file. You might have already wondered, if text is wrapped in double quotation marks, how can it include a quotation mark? Say we want inches to be a text value, and we want to include the inch mark. That's an error. For a literal quotation mark, it must be escaped by preceding it with a backslash. There are a few others that must also be escaped. Backslash itself and line feed are two examples. There are others, including Unicode characters by their hex values. For those details and more, visit the JSON website, www.json.org. At this point, you should better understand what JSON is and how it works. If you have questions, ideas for more topics, or other thoughts to share, all comments are welcome. Thanks for watching. If you found this helpful, like the video and subscribe to this channel. It keeps more videos coming.